Welcome to the Scaling Creative Podcast. Today we are continuing our discussion on social media with our focus today being on the power of Instagram. If you missed any of our previous episodes, it was episode 10, right?
Episode 10, yeah.
Was Facebook, a focus on Facebook. And then episode 9 was just social media in general. So feel free to hop back.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to you should probably listen to them in order if you can, or at least episode 9 first.
Yes.
Right? Because episode 9 is an overview.
Yep.
And then these are the specifics.
Yes. Okay, so to start, we're going to talk about a couple of statistics that I found about Instagram. So the first one is Instagram now has 1 billion monthly active users, which is kind of crazy.
It's a lot of people.
That.
A lot of people.
And over 60% of the users log in daily, making it the second most engaged network after Facebook.
Wow.
And the biggest demographic group are males, 18 to 24, and 75% of all users are between the ages of 18 and 24. 90% of Instagram users are younger than 35. So 18 to 35 around there, 34 is the age range. And which for me, this is personally where a lot of my clients or customers live. And maybe it's because that's where I live. I don't know. We were talking about this earlier that for you, Mindy, that's the platform you're on the most, right?
Yes.
What about you guys?
I'm on them all, but for different reasons, I think, than most, because I am so about the business that I kind of spend time everywhere. I definitely spend a lot of time.
Though? Like if you were...
I don't really have it personally. My brain is always
always business.
Yeah, to a point.
I feel like his personally is not online. It's you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really...
You make home videos, but for the family, you know what I mean? It's more like that, I feel like.
Yeah, I rarely go on to see... I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe I don't. Do I go on to see friends what they're doing? No, I don't. I'm kind of always thinking strategically. When I go on there just to consume, I'm just consuming whatever. But
yeah,
I'm always I'm probably not like the average 34-year-old because I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. Which, unless you know about that platform, I probably spend equal amount of time on LinkedIn as I do Facebook and Instagram. But that's probably not normal for a 34-year-old that isn't into business.
Right.
But I think Instagram is probably my favorite, just because it's the most feels the most raw, vloggy, behind the scenes. At least the people I follow, Instagram is much more stories specifically, much more just real time, where people you really think about what they're posting on the feed, but stories are more random stuff, which I like. That's what I like about it.
Yeah. What about you, Paolo?
Instagram, for sure.
Instagram?
I'd say so, because it's just I don't know, it's a really cool place where, like you said, you can connect with people that you don't know personally, and you can see it in real time with stories, but at the same time, they can also post their art, if they're a musician, if they're an artist, if they're a business owner, anything that they want to post, you can visually see, hopefully if they're keeping up with everything, that you can see what they're doing and what they're up to. So I like Instagram.
I very rarely scroll through my Instagram, though. I mostly do stories.
Most people do now.
Interesting. Wow, that's very interesting.
That's also why I'm convinced, and I'm excited for this actual debate, but I don't think the grid's very important in Instagram because I don't think people visit it very often. I think the artists visit your grid to see how cool it looks.
Yep.
I think most people don't care.
Really?
I think Instagram stories are now becoming more important.
Because
more viewed. Let's put it that
and
way.
because they're more viewed, I think people will go to your grid when they see something post and you're new, they're coming across from a hashtag. But once they follow you, then they kind of tend to only follow stories or what they see pop up in the feed. How often do they go back to see if that fit with your other grid? And artists, I think about that, but we'll talk about that because we're definitely going to talk about there's pros and cons, I think, of the grid.
I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so when it comes to business, one of the biggest questions that we got was, what should I post on Instagram that would get me better engagement? So what are your thoughts on that?
You want to go first?
No.
Okay. So my wife actually works for a church, and she does a lot of the Instagram, social media stuff. And she used to be very, wanting to think the grid mattered and the look, the aesthetic, all those things mattered. And then she noticed, she was like, why am I getting so many likes and so much engagement on photos and videos that are like more personable, like they have like a story, they have like people involved and all this stuff. So I guess to answer the original question, I forget exactly what the question was, but
It was,
what was the question?
How to get better engagement.
Better engagement.
Yeah.
That's something that she noticed right away, was the moment, like, it's not that like you can't have a nice looking feed or whatever, you know what I mean? That's not the problem. But like she took her focus from having the best looking feed
Yes.
to having the most engaging feed. So now she's more so like, what are people really actually interested in? And a lot of it, like we've always talked about, is either like entertainment or information. You know what I mean? It's kind of either one. And I think with Instagram, a lot of people just love like people's stories when they can connect with people. I think that's what gets engagement right there.
Yes. My thought to this is, and something too that I was trying to put myself in a consumer's mindset,
Right.
because I do think kind of business most time. But when brands or businesses like humanize themselves, and where there's, like you said, a story or something that I can connect with, or when somebody is vulnerable and real, like some of the people that I follow, when they do videos where they're not necessarily wearing a ton of makeup, and like I can relate.
Right.
So when a business or a brand does something that I can personally relate to, I feel a stronger connection to them. And when I have a stronger connection, way more likely to purchase something from them.
And the only way that they can truly put stuff that's relatable to you is to understand like who's watching it. And that's something that we would talk about in every social media, because it is so important to understand who's there and the mindset that they're in when they get there. Because I think you go into a platform in a different mindset,
100%.
like without actually sometimes even realizing it. Like in LinkedIn, I always say it's kind of like my feel of I'm putting on like a suit and meeting people or whatever, like for business. But on Instagram, it's kind of like you're just walking into a bunch of friends and other things, just seeing what's up. Facebook may have more, I think, more like almost a family-ish vibe, where you're kind of going in to see your close friends. Because like my Facebook friends now are literally only like legit friends. Instagram is like more everybody.
Okay.
LinkedIn is anybody because it's business side. But
Yeah.
so I'm going in with such different mentalities. And then Twitter, I'm going into for information, news, and for following certain people that I want to see. So because I'm going in differently with my mentality,
Right.
they can relate to me better by understanding that even if you're a business that does something that's not super exciting, make your feed fun and personable and not even businessy all the time, because the people that are going to see your feed on there will like it better.
Absolutely.
It'll make more sense for them because they won't think that you're just all, because in that 18 to 24-year-old demographic, they're not excited seeing nothing but salesy things on your feed. Like that's not going to get any engagement.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of like we mentioned in the Facebook episode, I think it's so important for you to have a conversation with your company about, okay, why are we on Instagram and why are our customers on Instagram and how can we serve them while they're there? And if you can answer that question well and provide content around that, you're just going to gain engagement.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I think it's important to understand how you're going to storytell on there and decide. Don't just have it. It goes for any platform. Don't just have it to have it.
Right.
Figure out what you're actually doing. Think about your back end, how you're actually going to use it for business purposes, but realize that you have no chance of even gaining customers if you don't first get engagement with things.
Right.
Because it's definitely hard to sell to nobody that's listening.
Right.
And the more crap that you post, the more you're going to be muted. Like you can mute people's stories, you can mute things, and as soon as you do something that's no fun in a platform, people aren't going to show up.
How do people know when it's crap? And
I think if you see zero engagement, you know it's crap.
okay.
Obviously, organic reach is going down and down and down regardless. So that's part of it, that no matter what, you're not going to see as much engagement probably as you hope or that you did a year ago or 2 years ago. But I still think the market overall is going to tell you what they really think. Like the people are like, I can't believe I posted this picture. It got like 10 likes. Well, the picture wasn't that good then.
Yeah.
You just thought it was really good.
You thought it was good, but maybe your ideal client didn't.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is post a lot. But when you see something that does something way better than something else, try to think about what it was. Was your description, was your caption a lot better? Was the picture a lot better? Was it more personal? Was it more directly to the target than your previous post? There's ways to kind of diagnose things
Yeah.
and at least get a good indication of, because there's usually a reason when something does way better.
Yeah.
In general, you're always going to get a very small percentage of your actual likes to engagement. But if you're averaging 0.5% and then suddenly one gets 5%, there's a reason.
Right.
Start to do more of it.
When we started our Instagram for my nonprofit, and you're just kind of learning in the beginning and experimenting and just trying different things. But it's so interesting to see how there are very specific things that people react to so much better. Like pictures of Mary and I, professional pictures of Mary and I do so well. Or funny things. And then we noticed too that a lot of when your captions are really long, like ours don't always do that as well, unless there's something very vulnerable in the caption. Then it does well. So it's just a matter of learning and being like smart enough to observe what's doing well and what's not.
And understanding that your demographic in your nonprofit is all females.
Yes.
It's a very different target
Yeah.
than if you just start targeting 18 to 24-year-olds in general. Like your people are going to engage with emotional stuff in a much bigger way with no makeup pictures or just actual things like that, where like the average male could give two craps about it, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it's like that makes it tough too.
Yeah.
You have to truly understand that if you're female only, which is your target, it's way easier to think about what to post than if you're not. Because the average male, I don't think cares as much about the artsy and the pretty side at all.
Yep.
They're literally just more almost about the entertainment value than anything.
Yeah.
And value in the information side of it. But it's just so different. So really thinking about that makes a big difference. And then it's important because I think if you post something and it does unbelievably well, but then you start to realize you get more and more and more and more females on your feed, but that's really not your target, you should be rethinking that too. Because you don't want to fill your followers up with people that aren't ultimately who's going to get you business.
Yeah.
Because then even if you reach them, you may get super high engagement on this pretty picture, but if it was a bunch of females that aren't going to get you anything,
Right.
well,
You need to be smart.
is that actually ROI positive
Right.
from a standpoint of business?
Right.
A question that we got a lot too was, how do you grow your followers? So does anybody want to speak into that?
You have to have a story to tell. You have to, people have to and the funny part is that doesn't have to go as crazy as you think. Like your story is a story, but so if you're a business owner, there's a story in that. If you're a speaker, there's a story in that. If whatever you are, but you have to have something to tell, a story to tell, something to show, I believe, something for people to want to follow, otherwise there's not much for them to hold on to, So at least that's a start.
Yeah.
That's a start. You need some story to tell. And if you're a business, maybe you're selling something or whatever, but it has to be told. The story has to be told for people to follow it, I think.
I mean, if you ask yourself the question, if I were to ask you, why should someone follow your Instagram? You should have an answer. And it shouldn't be, well, I don't know, why not?
No one else does.
There's got to be a reason that someone follows you.
You have to ask. You can ask the same person the same question of why do you follow the people you follow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
see
think
what
if
they
you
say.
can't answer it, then that's probably why you're not growing much.
Right.
Because just because you think something's good or artsy or great or you have a great grid, if people don't care about it, you're the only one who thinks it's great.
Right.
We get really critical, especially in the artist field, of you think you post the greatest Instagram stuff and the greatest pictures and the greatest content and no one likes it. And you're like, I just hate the algorithm. No, you probably just aren't very good at what you do. I mean, organic reaches down.
Right.
But if you still don't get anything, it's just not as good as you thought. So do better.
Yeah. And I think quality matters too. Like so many people are so focused on more followers. But if you're not even engaging the current ones that you have, you should probably start there. But because I don't even think that you need tons and tons and tons of followers to have a successful
Not at all.
business or a successful presence on social media.
Yeah, the numbers don't matter if you're not actually converting anything. You could have
Right.
100,000 followers, but if when you actually are trying to sell something, no one's buying it, the followers are no good. You're better off having actual engaged followers on all platforms.
Yeah.
You can have 10% of the followers someone big does, but if you actually are capitalizing them,
Right.
then you're doing better.
Right.
I think people just need to fall in love with like sharing what it is they're doing. I think people are too focused about like, oh, I don't have enough followers or I don't have enough likes or whatever it may be. But I think if you fall in love with what you're doing and you're just sharing that story, so then it's like, whether there's likes or not, you're still doing, you know what I mean? Like that I feel like makes more sense than concerning yourself with how many likes or follows or whatever it is. You know?
Right. Okay, so what about the aspect of when it comes to business and the fact that there is, I don't know, I think Instagram is more focused on being aesthetically pleasing. And I know we have talked about people are not as focused on feeds anymore.
Right.
And they tend to watch stories more. But I mean, as a graphic designer, are there any tips? Because a lot of people will ask, like, how do I make my Instagram look good? Do you have any tips as far as even if it's like apps that help you with cohesiveness on your, because it can even help with stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like what we've been saying. It's like, what story do you want to tell? What style of presence do you want? Like, who are you and what it is? And it's like a lot of my photography friends, like they have a certain photography style, and that style ties over into their Instagram. And by like how they color their pictures and things like that. So it's like you can, and I think the one thing that I see is that what helps people identify you partly on Instagram is by one, what you post, and two, how it looks. So if there's a consistent style to what you post, it doesn't have to look great on a grid, but if you have consistency in that style, like if it's like a certain photo filter you always put on your pictures, so that has all your pictures have a certain style to them. If you use certain colors, and that people will start identifying, being like, I know it's this company because it has that feel, and I like what they do, and because I like what they do, I'm going to interact with them more. Like I take note of that. People take note of that subconsciously, even.
Yes.
And so they'll think of you when they see it other places too then.
Right.
It's almost like that brand is translating to their Instagram.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Are there any apps that you recommend?
There's lots of apps out there.
That is a true statement.
Like there is so many, like, I mean, literally, and there's always new ones coming out all the time. So it's hard to keep up with what is current. Like I know if you Google like what are good Instagram apps, like they're all out there.
Yeah.
Like
That's
it
true.
doesn't take much to do it. And so, and I think it's just trying out ones and actually using them and figuring out how to use them and what works for you. Because some apps that I might use might be more technical for me because I need something a little bit more technical, but for somebody who's just getting into it, you might not need that. It might be too much for you and too confusing. So just go out there, download them, start playing with them, trying them out.
Right.
And if they don't work for you, delete them and download another one.
And determine if it actually matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're a photographer, if you're a graphic designer, if you're someone that obviously is selling a service of things looking good, your photos should look really good.
Yeah.
Your product, your Instagram feed should look good. Your grid should look good. Everything should look good. If you're not, you just focus on what you're actually posting each time. Because I think it can also, because we have had this as well, because we have a very creative Instagram grid for like scaling creative, because we're a creative company that makes sense. But at the same time, you could always have the pushback of, if you don't want to post something you know is good because it's not going to fit in with your grid, then you're leaving good stuff out there. And that's also a silly thing. Now, sure, can you try to manipulate anything to fit a certain thing? Yes, but if you're putting obstacles in your way and then using those as the excuse of why you're not actually putting something out,
Yeah.
you're going to lose. Because, and I think that a lot of people do that too. There is absolutely so many less people posting things on Instagram than they ever used to.
Yes.
Now that stories are so popular.
Yep.
And granted, you should absolutely use stories as much as possible, because the other thing about doing that is you keep showing up on the top in the circle.
Yep.
It's very, very important.
Yep.
And if you do that, there are some people that are making a living on their Instagram stories.
Yeah.
So do they really care about the grid? Probably not.
Yeah.
They because they just want you to follow them. But it just depends on the field you're in.
Yeah.
I think that it's just first you should focus more on actually posting stuff that is valuable. Then if you are skilled enough, or you have the team, or you want to pay to have it look great, then do that too.
Yeah.
But don't do the opposite
Right.
and let that cripple you from actually putting anything out there.
Yeah, don't make social more complicated than it
No.
has to be. And I think one of the things I had written down was I think patience is everything. Be generous, be kind, be helpful without expecting anything in return, and be of service because trust is built over time. And a lot of people, I mean, most people buy with people that they trust. And so I think Instagram is a really great place to build trust
Yep.
with your people that are following you. Because a lot of people that are following you, they might not even be purchasing from you yet,
No, but they're connecting with you.
but they're connecting with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we talked about a way, for sure, a tactic to get more followers is to go out and engage with people that are doing similar things or searching for certain things or hashtagging certain things that make sense for your industry. So,
Yeah.
and not going to their page and, posting great profile, follow me and I'll follow you. Not
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. But meaning like if you're a dentist, then you should look for the term smile and every single smile on Instagram, share something nice, like not a pitch, just a nice, beautiful smile.
Yeah.
Or what a great picture, just something that makes you normal.
Yeah.
And do that every single day to 100 people a day. Just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep
Right.
doing it.
Right.
And that will at least give you a better chance to do it, to build a following for it. But it is just important to, because obviously you can think about what you do all you want on your own grid, but if no one's following you, seeing anyway.
Right. Right.
So if you want to build it, there's got to be searchability and reasons, hashtags and different things that you're posting around stuff that you hope people actually go to.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking what Scott was saying is that that's also ties back into how to better build your following too, is that to go out there and interact with people. Don't just sit and wait for them to come to you.
Yeah.
Correct.
Go out and start commenting and searching hashtags and like commenting on people's pictures, because then you'll pop up on their thing and everybody will be like, wait, who is this company that just commented on my picture? People feel special about that. And so they're going to be more likely to interact and follow you back if you interact with them.
And there definitely will be people that don't like that. Believe me, I've done that strategy
Yeah.
many times. Though people are like, oh, you're just trying to. Oh well, like
Yeah.
it's okay. Like
Try
it is. Yes, you're going to get people
cares?
that don't like it,
Yeah.
but you're much better off just being out there.
Yeah.
It's just like if you were at a networking type of thing. You want to meet people, right?
Yes.
So you wouldn't walk up to someone and be like, hey, if you're ever looking to improve that smile, contact. Like you wouldn't.
Right.
You'd kind of nicely talk. Oh, I love your
Yeah.
shirt. I love your.
Yeah.
That's what you should do on social.
Yeah.
Same thing.
It just be a person and let them be interested in what you offer because they actually just like you.
Yeah.
It's true.
For sure. I was reading something that Gary had posted because I love to be a student, and I think that's also a really important thing. If you want to grow your social media, you want to learn more about Instagram, like be a student.
Yeah.
Look it up yourself. Watch other people, learn from other people, observe, like all those things. But obviously we talk about Gary Vee a lot here, but one of the things he said was focus on what your customer wants, not just on the service that you provide. And he actually gave this one example of Guinness. They had a problem about 60 years ago. Their sales were declining for like the first time ever, and they had to figure out a new strategy. So they created the Guinness Book of World Records. Because what they noticed was
That's so
that two of the biggest things that people talked about when they surveyed people in bars were soccer and trivia. So that's how they came up with the Guinness Book of World Records. So essentially, they were really focused more so on what people were talking about and then their own product. But in return, it's just like kind of crazy. So I thought that's a really interesting thought.
Yeah.
And so how can you take that and really implement that?
And I think
your
you can
business.
start, if you're not that creative, like that's a big, huge thing. Like what an idea. It works amazing.
Yeah.
If you're not unbelievably creative, at least at the bare minimum, follow every local sports team in your area, every other local business, every other local whatever, and just be in their feeds. So if you have a local sports team, baseball team, every time they post something, that says a great win for so and so. Comment, yes, we love our local whatever. You just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Just do something that makes people in your area, because the people that are looking at that team probably live in your area. And especially like in our area, we have a lot of minor league teams. That's even better because people follow, national teams from around the country. Most minor league teams and whatever, they are only followed by local people.
Yeah.
Right.
But be in their feeds every time they're posting something, congratulating them and retweeting something. And when you see something new happening, to a new building in the area that you're in, commenting on that, and just because you just keep showing up.
Yep.
And it's a good way to not have to overthink what to post every time because you're out there.
Yeah.
If people keep seeing you, that's the best way to actually get people to follow you.
Yeah. And that was my next question that a lot of people asked was like how to create content. And something that we talked about and we use a lot is this whole concept of pillar content. Can you explain to people?
Yeah,
pillar
this definitely is
content
not my thing. This is a Gary Vee thing, so I will not discredit him. I've learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
But the idea being pillar content is because people a lot of times can't think about how to. This is something that we do a lot with companies, and it's been really helpful for us, is a podcast, for example, is a longer form content.
Yes.
And then figuring out ways to make smaller pieces of content out of it so that you can put out more. So like one of the great things about a podcast is obviously you have a long conversation and you can use the answers in different ways on all different platforms.
Right.
So how a business implements that is exactly the same, but just their pillar content might be different. Maybe they do a weekly Q&A or whatever in some form. But the whole concept behind that is people, I think, overthink that you need to have 100 great ideas every week. When like maybe a podcast is your great idea or the one long form Q&A, but how do you make that into lots of other type of content so that you can have more stuff to put out?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've been doing recently with one of our clients, is just creating frequently asked questions stuff so that they can post it, because people ask the same things to most businesses all the time.
Very true.
So why not put it in video form? Because it also is searchability for people to possibly share. And at the minimum, it's something that you can start with because it's better than nothing.
Yep.
If you can't come up with anything creative, just randomly hop on Instagram Live and hop on these different platforms and just show up. See who else shows up and talk to people. If you get 4 people watching, that's okay. You still show up with a big, huge red circle around you on Instagram because they love people going live on their platform. They're going to put you at the front of the line. And if people pop on and you're doing something that is entirely not what your industry is, it actually probably will be ROI positive because they're expecting something dumb. They're going to click it just to see. People always click live and see what happens, and they usually leave right away or not. But if they went on and you were doing something entirely different that was super fun, they're going to be like, wait, what? That's different.
Yeah.
And
And I love IGTV too. I think that's...
Yeah, unfortunately for most people, they don't, which Instagram's in trouble with because they had big plans and they've really butchered it. But Instagram TV is a great, at least if you want to do longer form, you get 10 minutes on there and they're now allowing you to make it bigger. I think it has big potential, but Facebook, and I don't think we've mentioned it, but hopefully people know this. Facebook owns Instagram. I don't know if we've mentioned that in this podcast. I think most people know that, but it's pretty big to know
Yeah,
it is.
that the person who is number 1 also owns number 2.
Yes.
So they're pretty big. And the reason that that's big for you is what we want to talk about next is like the ad platform of Instagram.
Yes.
Because here's the great thing about Instagram. All the great marketing that you can do in Facebook is owned by the same company, so the information is too. So when you run ads in Instagram or in Facebook's ad manager, you decide in an unbelievably cheap fashion, it's incredible what we have available, that you can just let them post it across multiple depending on who your demographic is. Now, the strategy we like to do more is really being strategic about what ad is showing up in stories, making sure that it fits in stories, making sure that it fits in the feed and all that. But they know all the information. The same information we shared in the last episode about Facebook. They're the ones that own it. So you have this incredible potential that at the bare minimum, if you want to get more followers, you can run ads that just get people to follow your feed. But you will get eyeballs there. You have to decide what they see when they get there. You can pay to get people to come to your profile. Will they stay is the question. But the ad platform is incredible because it's even cheaper right now than Facebook. And the Instagram stories are even cheaper, and they're unbelievably effective. There's
they
now,
are.
I think, 1 in every 3 people you follow. I think it's, as you swipe to the right, I think it's like 1 in every 3 almost. It seems like there's a sponsored post
Yeah.
now. And when done correctly, they are very powerful because when done correctly, you don't realize they're a sponsored ad.
I was just gonna say, what does it mean when done correctly?
Oh yeah.
To me, it's that it looks just like what you were just watching.
Yeah.
99% of Instagram stories, other than the people who go crazy and make like polished ones, are someone in front of a camera, raw, talking to it. So if you're creating Instagram stories and you want to really fit in, it should literally be recorded from your phone in an Instagram story style because they're not going to realize that it's not their friend.
Yep.
And if you're talking this fun native language, they're forgetting that they even see it, and then they're like, "Oh, who is this person?
Yeah.
Oh, this is that company."
Yeah.
What's not done correctly is when you just let Facebook decide where to share it, because then what happens is they're going to post your natural, 16 by 9 or what normal format video into the Instagram story, and it just doesn't look natural.
Right.
You can spot that ad from a mile away.
Correct.
Yeah, you can.
Because you see it, the text pop up all weird, and it's just, so that's not a great use of money. But when you run that ad, you can decide whether it goes to their automatic placements or you can manually do it and say just Facebook feed, just Facebook, just Instagram feed, just Instagram stories. And being able to choose that distinct thing is really where you get a good return on it because you decide.
Okay.
And it also becomes cheaper. Because if you do that, that's a big thing that I've realized is if you do the automatic placement for ads, they're putting it in a lot of places that I don't think are beneficial at all, like Facebook Messenger. And they're putting it in all these different places that I really don't think are good at all. So you should just go at least to the manual placement and just choose Facebook feed, Instagram feed, Instagram stories are really the only place you should really run things right now.
Right.
Because the other ones just no one's paying attention to. Does anyone click things that show up on the right side of Facebook and these different random no.
Not at all.
I don't.
Yeah, and no one does. But yet they're charging you to put it
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So you're at least better off saying, if I want $100, make sure it goes to where
you
it
want
actually
it to go.
should.
Yeah.
Not just wherever you think is best.
Yeah.
Like,
Whatever you're feeling that day.
yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But there's power of simultaneous, like running, if you're targeting 20 to 40-year-olds, do Instagram feed and Facebook feed because they are in different places.
That's
And
true.
let them kind of decide where that target is spending time and
Yeah.
test it.
I know, Mindy, you and I had talked about the other day that you love when an ad pops up that you didn't even realize was an ad. And I think, too, because what we do, you're kind of like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
wow, that was well done.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like I always say, like it's like a really good ad. When I'm watching it, I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure out. Wait a minute, which friend is
is
this?
Yeah.
Who is this?
How do I know her?
How do I know them? And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, it's a sponsored ad.
Yeah.
You're like, good job. Good job.
Yeah.
Good
Good
job.
job.
Well
Good
done.
job.
Well
Good
done.
job.
Very well done.
Very well done. But yeah, that's always and it's not. They're normally nothing fancy.
That's the
Yes.
unique part about
Yes.
stories.
Right. They're not
Right.
fancy.
The
They
most
don't have to
natural
be-
looking thing is raw.
Yeah.
Which costs not a lot
The
of money.
cheapest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had even talked about this when we were brainstorming once just for Scaling Creative.
Sure.
About, I mean, they're short. Like, you got to catch people's attention right
You do.
away. So whether it's something funny or, like, it was fun to
Yeah.
brainstorm some different ideas that we even have that
Right.
we're going to be putting into
I mean,
place.
there's lots of people I follow that do maybe like a multiple story line. And I will sit there for a minute watching the multiple stories,
Yeah.
watching it through. And so they have my attention. And I think a lot of people don't even realize if you do a good story, people will sit there and won't just swipe on to the next person, but they'll sit there and just watch through it.
Yep. And that's why I hate when people ask all the time, like, how long should it be? Like 7 seconds, 6 seconds? I'm like, if it's no good and it's 6 seconds, they won't even watch 3.
Yeah.
No good is no good.
Yeah.
Where simultaneously, if there's something good, you'll watch 5 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
the most popular video on my entire channel on YouTube is an hour and 10 minutes long because there's value to people watching it.
Yep.
And we'll dive in, I don't even know if this episode, but just about the power of that exactly, Mindy, of don't overthink the length. If you can make something unbelievable a minute instead of 5, then make it a minute.
Oh, yeah.
But if you can't, chances are the people that actually watch 3 minutes of it
Right.
are your best target customer.
Yes.
Because they're actually showing, and the cool thing about these ads is you can run these strategic ads that say someone that consumed 40% of this video or 60% of this video. And I think the person that would watch more than 70% of your video probably is more likely to buy whatever the heck you're trying to sell eventually than the person that watches 2 seconds of it.
Yep.
So don't overthink the length. Just think about the creative.
Yeah.
But yeah, that beginning is important. If the beginning's not good, they won't even watch any of it.
That's
Right.
true.
So that first 3 seconds is
Yeah.
very, very important to get them to, for some reason,
Yeah.
think that they should stay.
It's hard to not overthink, but also like analyze it, so
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
fun. Make the brainstorming piece for your company or your personal brand fun.
Yes. And I think look at the personality of your office. Look at the personality of your coworkers
Right.
that you are building this with, because together you guys, everybody makes a really good team. You individually might not come out with like a lot of,
Right.
but you have the people around you, and it's like, it might be that, Bob in the office is really funny. So like, let's get him on the story sometimes,
Right.
just
Yeah.
talking about stuff.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of value in getting the correct age person to be the person that's on the face. Because no question about it, if you're a 24-year-old female, seeing another 24-year-old female or something close
You're immediately going to
is much better
Yeah.
than posting 70-year-old Jan,
Yeah.
who may get Instagram entirely, but if
Yeah.
she doesn't really understand that she doesn't reach it the same,
Yeah.
it is important. So it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that the person that even does the stories actually knows the platform that well. That's another big thing I think people mess up, is just hiring the wrong people, because they
Yeah.
think that because 18, 24-year-olds on it, they can hire whoever. But putting that face on it is great.
Yeah.
Even whatever message you want them to tell them.
Right.
But let them do it as a 20-year-old.
Right. And I think too, it's like, I think also it's like people will do, as you were saying, just hire anybody to do it. And it's like, well, you're 18 to 24, you're on Instagram,
Yeah.
you do stories, but it's like doing personal stuff can be different than doing.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it's just like, you need some oversight, but yeah,
Yep.
there is more thinking that goes into it.
And a humongous opportunity right now on Instagram, and even Facebook too, but Instagram, I think more than anything, is using influencer marketing on Instagram.
Huge.
And for those that are listening that don't know what that is, the idea is simple. You find an influencer who has a good following on Instagram, you pay them money to promote your brand. But the key with that is when you are hiring somebody, number one, it's unbelievable because it's so cheap, because most super influencers on Instagram don't even realize their value. So you can get them for so cheap because they're like, $200, sweet. Because they're, and they may have 10,000 followers, and which may be way more than you.
Yeah.
But the key is when you're paying these people, letting them do whatever they want for their audience to be able to send your message. Do not tell them what to say, because they're doing better than you are. They got the following.
They have the eyeballs. Yeah.
So if you're going to pay them to just promote your brand and they say, what do you want me to say? You may, if they need to know information about you, sure. But don't tell them how to do it,
Right.
because clearly they've gotten
it be natural.
engagement, and let it be natural.
Those are the facts.
Yes.
You do the selling.
Yes, and let them do it. If it's stupid, like, don't be worried about that. If you've already picked an influencer you feel like is good enough that you're not going to worry about like them doing anything dumb against your
Right,
brand,
right.
and you already trust them, but then trust them. Don't ask someone that knows what they're doing to not do their job and doing it. But also, I like the idea of, instead of trying to find, an Instagram influencer that has 1 million people, find 20 that have 10,000, 5,000.
Yeah.
And if you want to know how to find those people, go on Instagram right now, search for people that are posting stuff within your area. Look at the top 9 posts. The top 9 posts are usually the people that have the biggest followings, and send a DM to the next 100 you see and say, I'd love to pay you to talk about my brand. And a lot of people will ignore you. A lot of people will respond back and be like, yes, and you'll ask how much, and you'll internally laugh because it's so cheap. Because they just don't know the value. That's why there's literally agencies being created right now just for influencers, so that they can actually properly price themselves. But it's so important, because if you follow your favorite vlogger and they suddenly show up,
Yeah.
because I think Tesla's doing this right now with Tesla, or someone is doing it with Tesla with Casey Neistat.
Omaze or whatever.
Yeah, so
Something.
they have him on all these sponsored ads promoting this, whatever they're doing for some sort of giveaway or whatever.
Right.
But And then they're just running it against people that like Casey Neistat.
Yeah.
So if I'm a huge Casey Neistat fan or whoever it is, and I see him talking about something, I don't even care if it's sponsored because I know that the way that he story tells will be interesting.
Yeah.
And then he's going to get me interested in the brand.
Yeah.
That's influencer marketing at its finest. And it is so effective. But companies like to get in the way and try to say, can you read this script? So one more thing about like the ad side of it is just similar, exactly what we talked about in the Facebook one, if you listened. When you are promoting what they call promoting a post in Instagram, which is making a post that already exists more known, it's very important to only do that to things that do well originally.
Yeah.
And because it will be cheaper and it will also just be more effective. So I always, when I have the other company that runs weddings, whenever we would have like a wedding film that would get pretty good reaction on something, you'd spend money on that one because clearly more people see it, you'll get even more interaction. And it's just a good way to continue to also build your page, because if something already has, because we all use credibility from like when you see something, if it already has tons of likes and tons of comments, you pay more attention to it because you're kind of like, why is everyone talking about this?
Yeah.
So when you get something that does well organically and then you pay for it, it's going to do even better with pay. And then the absolute opposite of one thing you should never do on Instagram is pay for likes and pay for followers. This is something that people do all the time just because they want to say they have 10,000. And this goes kind of hand in hand with influencer marketing of when you find someone that has 10,000 Instagram followers, 20,000, 30,000, pay attention to what kind of response they're getting on their posts. Because you can buy likes and you can buy followers. But as an overall average, a typical like organic reach thing will get anywhere between like 6 to 11, 12% of your followers to likes if it's not a paid for thing. So if someone has 3,000 followers on a post, they should get anywhere between 175 to 350 as an average probably. If you see someone that has 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 followers and they have 25 likes on a thing, they're not real followers, period. Because there's no way that you have that many followers and only 20 people like it, no matter how much organic reach is going down. So don't pay for it. You're better off having 100 followers for 2 years, but every time you post, they love what you post, than having the opposite. But when you're looking for influencers, pay attention to that, because there are definitely people that are buying followers so that they can sell you on influencer marketing, and it's not going to help your brand.
Not at all.
So I think that's super important.
Exactly.
Well, I'm excited that I get the chance to actually exit this thing. Is that the right way to say
Send
it?
us out.
Send us out.
Send
All
us
right,
out.
everybody. We're on the home stretch here. Ready, and we're going in. So, thank you so much for following and listening to the Scaling Creative podcast. You can like and follow us in all the places, all the things that are social, because that's what we do around here. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.